You're all in for a wonderful treat today. Kelley Armstrong is an amazing, fantastic writer. If you've read any of her books, you know how heart-pounding and exciting they can be. Sometimes I'm just sitting in the living room with my 3-year-old playing and I'm reading her books and my heart is pounding out of my chest. I'm so excited to see what happens next. I find myself up till 4 o'clock in the morning reading her books. They're addictive and they're wonderful. If any of you have seen the TV show Bitten or read the book, and that's the first in a very great series of other world stories, you'll find that very exciting. The TV series on the first season follows very closely to the book. Lots of really sexy naked men running around in the woods, women too, so if you're into that thing, you'll find that that is very nicely fulfilled in both series. But heart-pounding danger and excitement and thrill. She's a wonderful read. Once you start her, you won't be able to put her down. I'm excited to hear all that she has to say to us today, so please welcome Kelley Armstrong.
Okay, so what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to briefly go through what I have written. And then I'm going to be I've got a couple of short readings today. I'm also going to be opening it up to questions. You say, okay, fine, unmute me. I sound much better muted. I'll be also opening it up to questions in between readings and then if we have any time afterwards. And to bribe people to ask me questions, I brought a box of goodies. And I'm going to sort of go through that as I go through what I have written. So what I've got here is something that I actually just put, or the link just went up for buying mystery boxes for me with the proceeds going to World Literacy of Canada. And it's me clearing off my shelves. So it's me putting random books into boxes and random leftover swag and putting them in and selling them for charity. So I've got one of them here that will go to somebody who asks me a question. Started with first series is As You Heard Bitten. Bitten was my first book. Came out in 2001. I do have a Fanshawe connection. I went to both Western and Fanshawe. I went to Western for my undergrad, got my bachelor's in psychology, was heading off to grad school to go through for my doctorate, and realized I was heading into the kind of career where I wouldn't have time to write for a very long time. I had been writing since I was a child. I did not ever expect to grow up and become a novelist, but I did dream of maybe someday being able to make a part-time living off of my writing. And I hoped to do that before I was the age I am now. So I decided instead of going to grad school, I would switch career paths and instead get a good job that I would enjoy, a 9-to-5 corporate cubicle job with good benefits, good wages, and lots of time to write. So I went to my other great passion, which is computers. I've been programming since the Commodore 64, which really dates me. So I took computer programming here, and that did give me my corporate cubicle 9-to-5 job that I could continue writing. So I was working at that when I sold Bitten in '99. Bitten came out in 2001. That is the Other World series. Went through up to 13 books. Last one was called 13 because I think we ran out of titles. So a couple of the books in this box are from that. This is a very old cover for the 7th book, No Humans Involved. Can be read as a standalone book because it is a different narrator there. This one here is Forbidden. These are something a little special that I still do. Although this series wrapped up in 2012, every year I've done a limited edition novella. So these are put out by a Michigan company. So they're leather-bound, illustrated, signed novellas. This one is, as you can probably tell by the cover, a pack story. I then continued writing. My daughter got to be about 12, 13, and started eyeing Bitten on my bookshelf and saying, when can I read that? And I was like, not now. So I said, how about I write you something set in the same world, but with teen characters and age-appropriate situations. That one turned into The Summoning, which was my first teen novel. That's the Darkest Powers trilogy, followed by the Darkness Rising linked trilogy. And I continue to write teen novels. You're going to hear a bit from my latest one of them today. I've also got one in the box. This is the second book in my latest trilogy. This one is it is teen high fantasy based on medieval Japan. So this is Empire of Night. Yeah, as you can tell, this is a mixed box of what was left on my shelves. So there's a whole lot of, look, book 2 in a trilogy. Look, book 7 in a series. In adult, I have ended the Otherworld series, started another series, I think 2013 now. That would be the Canesville series, which is the one I'm in the middle of now. Book 3 came out last summer, and I'm editing book 4. Actually, the first book for that, the US hardcover, is in the box. I had several boxes of leftover hardcovers there. I also write a lot of other things. I love to write. I as I said, grew up writing. So I write short stories. I write novellas. I am lucky enough to often get called on to write horror short stories because there aren't a lot of women who write horror. So I get a lot of calls to contribute to horror anthologies. This one's one of them. This one was interesting because the guy who put it together, Chris Golden, was really playing with an idea that when we teach writing classes, we always get young writers saying, how do I know if somebody has the same idea I have? What if I find out that someone has the same idea I have? So this anthology is 4 novellas, all with the same idea. That idea being a stranger comes to town and offers to raise the dead for a price. So what you get, not surprisingly, is 4 completely different stories about that. Mine is set in 19th century Upper Ontario after a diphtheria outbreak. Shockingly, nobody else did that story. But this was an example for anybody who thinks, what if somebody else has the same idea? So many people can have the same idea. No two will do them even remotely alike. So that is 4 Summoner's Tales there. I actually just had someone post on my Facebook this morning saying that she had her first story-induced nightmare from my story in there. So thumbs up. I also, this is a bit of an odd one, which is why it's in my box. Comics. Actually, it was the same guy who put together this, Chris Golden. We were on actually horror convention panel together, and the question got asked, if you could write in somebody else's world, whose would it be? I said, Joss Whedon. Angel, Buffy, would love to write in that world. Well, Chris has. He has written Buffy tie-in things. So afterwards, he contacted me and said, if you're serious about that, I know that IDW is looking for writers for their Angel comics. They took the TV show, ran 5 seasons, and then they took season 6 into comic form. So I said, yes, absolutely. So I did write a 5-issue arc for Angel, probably about 6 years ago. So one of those is in the box. There's also a bunch of little extras in the box. So as I said, that will be given away to somebody who asks me a question. reading. I'll leave the YA one for now. I will read a bit from this one. This one I didn't mention. This one came out Tuesday. So it's brand new, kind of. And I say kind of because it actually came out in e-serial form over the summer. My publisher decided to experiment using me as their guinea pig and brought this one out as a 6-installment e-serial over the summer. Did very well, so it came out in hardcover on Tuesday. What you're seeing here is not the hardcover. I couldn't find it at the last minute. This is actually what we call an ARC. It's an advanced reader copy. This is an American copy. The American version comes out in May. So you're seeing what is essentially an inexpensive paperback version with marketing information on the back. This one goes out to reviewers, bookstores, libraries to see, do they want to order it? That is how you get reviews ready before the book actually comes out. They send them this in advance of the hardcover one. This is an accidental series for me. I'm already writing quite enough. I've got Canesville on the go and I'm wrapping up that YA trilogy. But I had been for a few years working on a just for fun novel. Writers get asked, where do you get your ideas? The idea for this one came from my editor. Agent. My agent. We were talking and we were just talking and something came up and she happened to mention that she'd heard or seen that enough people go missing every year to populate a small town. And I heard that and went, oh, I could do something with that. So I did. I started working on a novel about a small town of people who have gone missing. This is not paranormal or fantasy, it is straight up mystery. That's the perfect setting for a mystery. An invisible small town where everyone who goes there is on the run or hiding from somebody and everybody lies. Nobody's going to tell their real story. They're going to make up and be whoever they want to be for those couple of years while they're in this small town, which is located in the Yukon, because if you've ever been there, you know it's the perfect place to hide a very tiny town. So this is the opening to that one. The title is City of the Lost. I killed a man, I say to my new therapist. I've barely settled onto the couch, which isn't a couch at all, but a chaise lounge that looked inviting and proved horribly uncomfortable, like therapy itself. I've caught her off guard with that opening line, but I've been through this before with other therapists, 5 to be exact. Each time, the gap between hello and I'm a murderer decreases. By this point, she should be glad I'm still bothering with a greeting. Therapists do charge by the hour. You, she says, killed a man? The apprehensive look. I know it well. The moment when they're sure they've misheard, or that I mean it in a metaphorical way. I broke a man's heart, which is technically true. A bullet does break a heart, irrevocably, it seems. When I only nod, she asks, when did this happen? 12 years ago. Expression number 2, relief. At least I haven't just killed a man. That would be so much more troublesome. Then comes the third look, as she searches my face with dawning realization. You must have been young, she says. A teenager? 18. She settles back in her chair, the relief stronger now, mingled with satisfaction that she solved the puzzle. An accident of some kind. She's blunt. Others have led me in circles around the conclusion they've drawn. You didn't really murder a man. It was a car accident or other youthful mishap, and now you torture yourself with guilt. No, I did it on purpose. That is, pulling the trigger was intentional. I didn't go there planning to kill him. Manslaughter, not homicide. A good lawyer could argue for imperfect self-defense and get the sentence down to about 12 years. She pulls back. You've researched this. The crime. The sentence. It's my job. Because you feel guilty. No, it's my job. I'm a cop. Her mouth forms an O of surprise, and her fingertails tap my file folder as she makes mental excuses for not reading it more thoroughly. Then her mouth opens again. The bare flicker of a smile follows. You're a police officer, she says. You shot someone in the line. No, you were too young. A cadet? Yes, but it wasn't a training accident. I settle on the chaise. How about I just tell you the story? An obvious solution, but therapists never suggest it. Some, like this one, actually hesitate when I offer. She fears I'm guilty and doesn't want me to be. Give her a few more clear clues and she'll find a way to absolve me. Except I don't want absolution. I just want to tell my story because that's what I do. I play Russian roulette with fate, knowing someday a therapist will break confidentiality and turn me in. It's like when I was a child, weighed down by guilt over some wrongdoing, but fearing the punishment too much to confess outright. I'd draw clues, reasoning that if I was meant to be caught, those hints would chamber the round. Magical, childish thinking. But it's what I do. Can I begin? I ask. She nods with some reluctance and settles in. That is the opening to City of the Lost. As you might guess, my homicide detective Casey is going to be caught finally, and that is how she ends up going to that small town of missing people. So what I'm going to do is, as I said, open it up to some questions before I do the second reading. If you ask me a question, I'll give you a number, and then I will randomly select one of those numbers to get my box of goodies, my bribe. Any questions? Yes.
Yes. During your intro, you mentioned that you are influenced by the work of Joss Whedon, and you had touched on Angel. So I was wondering if Angel and Joss Whedon's other work concerning Firefly is an essential part in your compositions.
I do. I was a big fan of Firefly. I am a huge fan of Westerns, for one thing. And I was able to do some Western influence in that because it's an off-the-grid, very Wild West type of town. So I absolutely loved Firefly and what he had done with it. And yeah, it's still a shame that that had never gone beyond one season. It just did not catch on. But he does such good things with character. He really knows how to get to the heart of characters and to have them grow and evolve over the course of a series. And I'm sure he could have done some amazing things if he continued on with Firefly. So you are number one, just remember that.
Thank you.
Yeah. In the orange.
Do you ever find you have a hard time compartmentalizing your stories so that they don't run into each other or into your real life?
Running into each other is probably the bigger fear because I have written a lot. The City of the Lost is my 32nd novel. So 32 novels and a whole lot of short stories and novellas. And you eventually start to pick up some, let's just say, echoes through it. And you're being very careful not to. I've been known to sort of joke about some things that I have a tendency to do. One thing that my editor years ago picked up was how many times I have abandoned warehouses in my books. Hey, it makes a great place for a showdown or a meeting, and she's like, you've got another abandoned warehouse, Kelley. So actually in Kingsville there is a whole theme of abandoned places that are not warehouses. So there's an abandoned psych hospital is one major one. There's an abandoned estate that's another one. And it's become an actual theme in the novel that every book has some major scenes set in some abandoned place that's not a warehouse. Also figuring out things like how many times my characters get knocked out. They would have like major concussion damage by now. The number of times that they end up being knocked out by something. It's like, it's not actually that easy to knock somebody out by hitting them in the head, But in my novels and in other novels, it happens an awful lot. So it's like knowing, let's try to have fewer people get hit over the head and knocked out. And the reason we do that is in a thriller or an adventure novel, it's great to end the scene with, right? Everything goes black. How else does everything go black unless you're being hit in the head? Well, I've had them being sedated, I've had them being drugged, I mean, all these different ways of how can everything fade to a black. But you do start to have to worry about, do you have the bigger things overlapping? Have I done a scene like this before? Have I done any major element of the plot like this? Are the characters in this one too close to any characters in other books? Because I do like telling all different kinds of stories, all different kinds of characters, and that does, of course, lead to the problem of when will I start inadvertently repeating myself. So I am very careful, but you almost are pretty much guaranteed to still see the occasional abandoned warehouse and person getting hit over the head and falling unconscious. You're number 2. Just remember that. Up there.
I was wondering, what made you decide to write mostly horror and like supernatural?
I have no idea. I blame too many Saturday mornings watching Scooby-Doo. I grew up loving folklore, loving myth. I knew the Dewey Decimal System numbers for folklore and myth and had read every book on there when I was still so small that I had to bring that little stool over to get up and read all of those books. Absolutely fascinated by that. So just my earliest stories, there's a joke in my bio that when asked to write about, girls and dolls, mine would be evil girls and undead dolls. I mean, it just was what I wrote. And of course, I did have many teachers, sadly, saying, Kelley, you seem to be able to write. And I got this right up to writing groups as an adult. You seem to have some talent, so why are you writing that? And it was, I love to write that. That is lots of fun. But I certainly did get that growing up because I wrote things that were perhaps not what they expected of me when they saw me. Yes, I have said too that there were things that I wrote in high school because I also write horror, I write violence, and I suspect that if I'd written those nowadays in high school, it would have been cause for some counseling sessions. But back then, all you would get was, that's a great imagination there. Maybe you can try something a little bit different. You're number 3.
What were the steps that you took at the beginning of your career to get your books recognized?
Do you mean to get them published or recognized after they were being published?
To get them published.
Okay, so to get them published, so that's a really long haul for most authors. It was a long haul for me. I said that I grew up writing. I grew up being told that I was good at it. I grew up winning contests, getting centered out for writing. So when I decided that I wanted to try writing novels and getting them published, people kept saying to me, it's really tough. You're going to get rejected. You may not get your first book published. And I would say, I understand. But deep down, I thought, that's not me. I have grown up being told that I can do this. As long as I work hard, I will get that first novel published. I did not get my first novel published, or my second, or my third. My fourth got published. So it was rejection after rejection after rejection. And what I learned from that is, yeah, you can be good at something, but it's like being the best, football player in your high school. It does not mean you can make a career of it. There is a best one at every single high school across the nation. And they can't all make a living at it. So it's a whole different thing, and it is about writing a book and getting it rejected and starting another one. And as I'm going, taking classes, joining writers groups, learning, perfecting my craft, and also waiting. Because it's often said that for getting published, there are 3 things have to come together. One is talent, but there's 2 more. And it's talent, timing, and luck. And it's a matter of writing a good book that is the right book and lands on the right person's desk at the right time. So for me, it was Bitten. And the way that I got Bitten published was actually I had an instructor look at it, asked me if he thought it could get published. He said he thought it could and offered to recommend me to an agent. He called up this agent, who was on my A list, probably the top of my A list, and said, would you take a look at my student's work? She said, what's it about? He said, werewolves. She said, no. This was 1999. Like, no. She finally said she only said yes to get him off the phone. I sent it in. Less than 2 weeks later, she called and offered to represent me. She had no interest in werewolves. What she does love is dark thrillers and strong female characters. So I got that book on the right desk of the right person who didn't even want to read it. But reading it and then her going, okay, I'm not so sure on this whole werewolf thing, but the rest of it she really loved. So she took that on. And if it had not landed on her desk, that had gone to other agents. And all I got was form letters. I think they hit the word werewolf and stopped. And I just got the form letter, not for us. So it was writing, and sending things out until those 3 things finally came together and I had the right book at the right time. So you're number 4. Over. There. Yeah.
Do you ever get writer's block, and how do you deal with it when you do get it?
Writer's block, I think every writer experiences it differently. What it can be is different for everybody. I've never had the kind that lasts for any length of time. As you can probably tell by my bibliography, I've never had it last very long. For me, it's one of 2 things. It can be not knowing what happens next. You hit a point in the story and go, I know I'm here and I need to get here and I have no idea how to bridge those 2. And we can get blocked on that. For me, then I don't do anything till I've solved that. I will walk the dog, I will wash dishes, I will do something completely boring and totally focus on how do I get myself out of this plot problem until I've got that done and can move forward. Outlining helps there. I do outline, so it's rare for me to get caught in that. It does happen. And the other problem is lack of self-confidence. Getting published does not solve that problem. And we do definitely still have that. In my case, it can be that I read something amazing. I read somebody else's work, short story, book, and go, that is so good, and I can't write like that. And then when I sit down the next day to actually write, I just get blocked. I can't do that, and so therefore I cannot write. When that happens, I force myself to write something. I say 500 words or you're not getting your butt out of this chair. I also remind myself, Hemingway said all first drafts are shit. If Hemingway thought all of his first drafts were crap, I have the right to write a crappy first draft. Just get some words out on the page, any words out on the page. I can't fix a blank one. I need actual words there, an actual story there to go back and work on. So that's how I solve what are my versions of writer's block. So you're number 5. Right in the middle.
Right here?
Yeah.
Now you've written like 35 plus books, right? Many successful. Congratulations by that. What is your motivation to keep going? Like, is it for the fans? Is it legacy? You've written so many books, more than your average novelist would write, right? So I mean, I just try to put myself in that position, and I just can't see it there.
I can't see that. And it is. I absolutely love telling stories. Many years ago, I think I probably had 2 or 3 books out. I was on a science fiction fantasy convention panel of authors, and somebody in the audience said, "Do you still love writing?" And my response was very enthusiastic, "I love it. I absolutely love it." And after the panel, one of the older, more experienced authors on it took me aside and said, "Oh honey, just wait till you've got 10 books out. That will change it. 30 plus books, I still love it. I absolutely love it. I do not need to write 2 books a year. I don't need to write at all. I can just keep on going on what I've got out there, but I love it. And I can't imagine not writing. I mean, my daughter, when I sold my first book, and she was still quite young at that time, was in the back seat and she was calculating. She's like, okay, so if you write a book a year, that means you have to write another 35 books in order to hit 65. And she's like, "You're probably going to write more than 35, aren't you, Mom?" Like, "If I can, yes." It just is. It's that really lucky thing of the one thing that you would gladly do for nothing, don't tell my publishers, you're getting paid for, is really the best job you can have. So you're number 6. Over here. In the blue, yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, you wrote a couple of books that were about a female hitman?
Yeah. I always forget Nadia when I'm
Yeah.
talking
Did
off.
you write as, I remember reading 2, did you write any more than that?
Yes, there is a third to wrap it up.
Are you planning on writing any more, or that's?
I actually just wrote a novella for them, which is in the editing process right now and it'll be out soon. Yeah, that was the books that I always forget to mention. It's my other mystery trilogy, Nadia Stafford. The premise for those is ex-cop turned hit woman. Because yeah, even when I write normal books, they're not actually normal.
I was reminded of the excerpts.
Yep, yeah.
That reminded me a lot of it, so.
Yeah, and it is. That is probably what City of the Lost is like the next iteration on that. It's a similar type of a book. Really enjoyed the Nadia books, but they were coming out when I was still deeply immersed in the other world. So the thing was that I was writing the other world on one side and Nadia on the other, and the other world were all being shelved under horror. Yes, chapters shelved me under horror. I think it's just because there aren't enough horror writers to fill that section. So I'm in horror instead of fantasy. And then Nadia was over in mystery. So all my other stuff is in horror, but Nadia's over in mystery. So even when I'm in the bookstore signing, I always forget to go over and sign those 3 sitting over in the mystery section. So you're number 6. And I'm going to do a quick reading here, and I might have time for a couple more before I wrap it up, and then I'll draw or use my random number generator. So this one is a standalone, not part of any series. My next 3 YAs are all standalones because I wrote 3 trilogies in a row and really wanted to write something where the story actually wraps up in one book. So this one is again a straight up thriller. It is considered YA. It's a slightly older YA, as you'll be able to tell by this. I should actually, sorry, just give me one quick second here. No. Sorry, I had an edited copy, and I was just gonna, but I think I've gotten rid of that. Because in an opening, you'll often include things that are not absolutely critical for that scene, but are important for what comes up later. So when I read, I often edit out those bits, but I don't have the edited version, but it's not long. So this is the prologue. If there's anything more tragic than spending your Saturday night babysitting, it's spending your Saturday night babysitting after canceling a date with the guy you've been dreaming about all year. Can't you find someone else? I say when Shannon asks me to take the gig because her grandma's sick. You don't think I've tried? You aren't exactly at the top of my list these days, Riley. I winced at that. We had been friends, best friends. Then last summer, her boyfriend got loaded and made a pass at me. I shut him down, of course, but I didn't tell her, and that had been my mistake, because someone else had. You owe me, she says. Can you cancel? I ask. I know the Porters. I used to babysit their daughter Darla when Shannon couldn't. They'd understand. Mr. Porter is getting an award. It's a huge deal. I take a deep breath. Fine. I'm walking to the Porters when my phone buzzes. Where are you at? I answer the text. Don't ask. The phone rings. When I pick up, Lucia says, I just got a call from Micah. Seems he was shooting hoops with Travis when Shannon walked by. After you canceled with Travis to cover her babysitting gig. She said her grandma's just fine, and she doesn't know why you'd lie to him like that. What? No, that's bullshit? She totally set you up. Before I can answer, I plow into a man walking around the corner. As I apologize, I notice the butt of a gun poking from under his jacket. Riley, Lucia says. I shake it off. I'm a cop's daughter. I know people legally carry concealed weapons all the time. Riley? Sorry, I'm at the Porter's place. I'll call you back in a few, okay? I can play Candyland now, Darla says, as her mother tries to give me last-minute instructions while applying her makeup in the main floor bathroom. Claire, Mr. Porter calls from the living room. We needed to leave 5 minutes ago. You're going out? Darla says. Again? That's why Riley's here, sweetheart. Mrs. Porter offers a strange smile as her daughter hangs off her arm. If we don't go out tonight, you can't play Candyland with Riley. I have an idea, I say to Darla. How about we set up the board, then we'll phone your mom and she can play on the way to dinner. Darla squeals and I laugh and propel her out as Mr. Porter calls, Claire! Then he sees me and says, sorry for shouting. She's almost done, I say as Darla and I pass through the living room. What color do you want to be? Darla asks. Purple. There is no purple, silly. She rhymes them off, but I'm busy thinking I could text Travis an explanation as we set up the board, except that I left my cell phone downstairs. If I go to get it, it'll seem as if I can't even wait for the Porters to leave before I start chatting with my friends and ignoring their kid. I look at the pieces Darla holds out. Green then. Mummy will be yellow. Darla hums as she lays out the board. I step toward the door. It's quiet down there, and while I doubt the Porters would leave before saying goodbye, they are in a hurry. I need to grab something from downstairs, I say to Darla. She nods and keeps humming, her attention on the board. I walk into the hall. I'm at the top of the stairs when a sudden whoosh makes me jump. Really, Claire? Mr. Porter sighs and then says, your hair must be dry by now. And I realize I'm hearing the blow dryer from the downstairs bathroom. Maybe if I just grab my backpack, it won't look suspicious. I start down the stairs. What the hell? Mr. Porter says. I freeze, but I'm only 3 steps down, too high for him to see. Who the hell? A resounding smack. I stumble back. A thud follows, like something hitting the floor. I inch against the wall, and when I look through the railing, I can see Mr. Porter's outstretched hand on the carpet. I back up 1 step and crouch, my heart thumping so hard I'm struggling to breathe. When I peer down, I see Mr. Porter's face. His mouth is bloody, and he's wiping it as he sits up. You want money? He says. There isn't more than $100, but you can take my credit cards. The rest is drowned out by the sound of the hairdryer still running. A door creaks behind me. It's Darla stepping from the bedroom, her mouth opening as she sees me. I fly up those stairs so fast I'm sure I'll be heard. I push Darla back into the room and close the door. The game's ready, she says, and I realize she didn't hear anything. Go ahead and start. I'll be right there. I need to get to a phone. Is there one in our parents' room? Do they still have a landline? And how long am I going to stand here wondering while a robbery unfolds below? Robbery. Oh God, there's a robbery, and the porters are down there, and I have Darla, and I need to do something, anything. I hurry back to Darla and Crouch. I'm going to step out and talk to your dad. You need to stay right here. Start your turn. Youngest goes first, right? Now wait, right? The hairdryer stops. I have to warn Mrs. Porter. A shriek from downstairs, a half-stifled yelp of shock has Darla's head jerking up, her eyes going wide. Did you hear that bird? It sounds strange, huh? My words tumble out fast and shaky, and I'm not even sure she understands. Stay right here while a shot. I bolt up from my crouch so fast I nearly fall over. Did I just hear? No, I couldn't have. It's a robbery, just a robbery. Riley? Fear licks through Darla's voice, and I know she's heard the same thing. It's a car, I blurt. Backfiring, but we're going to play a new game, Darla. Your mom's coming up in a few minutes to say goodbye, and we're going to hide. How's that? The fear evaporates as she lets out the first note of a squeal. I slap one trembling hand over her mouth. Shh, don't give it away. Now get under the bed. But that's the first play show. We don't want to worry her, just surprise her. Come on. I prod her to the bed. Then I hurry to shut the door. Below, I hear Mrs. Porter's stifled, muffled sobs. I need to do something. Riley? Darla pokes her head from under the bed. I quickly shut the door and run back to her. I'm overreacting. Cops, kid, we do that. It's simple armed robbery. Simple armed robbery. At the thought, this weird burbling laugh sticks in my gut. Yes, armed robbery is bad, but that's all this is. That's all. He wants something. He fired a shot to scare them. They're smart. They aren't arguing. Just a robbery. That's it, that's it, that's it. I crawl under the bed and strain to listen. I can still hear Mrs. Porter, her words now too faint to make out, but her tone tells me she's begging. Why don't I hear Mr. Porter? That shot. No, they've knocked him out. That's all. Knocked him. A second shot. And Mrs. Porter stops begging. A very brief bit from chapter 1. If there's anything more tragic than spending your Saturday night babysitting, it's spending your Saturday night babysitting after canceling a date with the guy you've been dreaming about all year. How many times have those lines gone through my head in the past 4 months? How many nights have I lain in bed thinking them, stood in front of the mirror thinking them? You stupid, stupid girl, you had no idea what tragedy is. Tragedy isn't a ruined Saturday night. It isn't a missed date. It's lying under your bed with the babysitter and listening to 2 shots and then following her into the hall and seeing your parents at the bottom of the stairs. Tragedy is spending your life trying to understand how that could have happened, how you could have been under the bed giggling with your babysitter while your parents were murdered, and your babysitter did nothing about it. Hell is being the girl who did nothing, who has to live with that guilt. Worse, has to live as a hero. Listen to people tell me how brave I was and how I saved that little girl. And all I want to do is shake them and say, I hid under the freaking bed. So that is the mass truth. After that, my poor girl Riley needs some therapy, shockingly. She is in an overnight therapy camp where the kids get taken hostage. Just what she needs, really. So I can take a couple more questions. I think I've got time for probably 2 more quick ones before I draw. Way up in the back corner there.
Very quickly, I particularly like, it sounds like you write a lot of dark urban fantasy. I particularly like the dark horror fantasy, like Steve Erickson and Glenn Cook, because you don't always know whether the good guys are going to come out at the end a lot. Provides very suspense. You were saying that sometimes you're in the horror section chapters. Why would you? Are there a few characteristics about your writing that really separate you from horror?
I think I got put in horror because my first series was paranormal, and certainly once they heard werewolves, demons, and so on, put you into horror. I love writing horror. That was my first love growing up, right? If I separate myself at all from it, it's because to me horror is an emotion. If I'm writing horror, I want it to be horrifying. I want it to invoke that emotion. And I can do that in some books, in some scenes. I call my current YA a high fantasy horror crossover. It definitely has horror elements in it. But a lot of my stuff does not necessarily have what I would call traditional horror scenes, which is traditionally you are going to have your werewolves are the monsters. When you're doing urban fantasy, your werewolves are the main characters. So that is sort of what ends up separating them. I am happy to own the title of a horror author, other than worrying that I will mislead someone who wants a good, terrifying read and picks up something of mine and goes, no, that just didn't actually do it. So you be for the draw number 7. Take one more in the blue right there. Yep.
How much time do you spend like working with and associating with like editors, illustrators, publishers?
So we do work fairly closely with our editors after a point. I mean, when I write a first draft, nobody sees it. Nobody even sees my second draft. I do the first draft, I edit it. The second draft, I'll usually edit it again. Then is when I send it to the editors. The editorial relationship is often misunderstood. I do see young writers and newer writers thinking that an editor can tell you to change something. No, they cannot. They just don't. They make suggestions for what they think would improve the book, or things that we may have as the writer overlooked. Just things that you're reading it and they can say, oh, wait a minute here. It's not totally clear why so-and-so does this. That's what the editor is looking for. They are not looking to do weird things like change your female main character to a male main character. I have heard writers say, I've heard these stories where the editor will make you change this. No, they just don't. They give you suggestions, but anytime that the author says that doesn't work, my editors always say, it's your story. It's because it's my name that goes on it, theirs don't. Theirs should go somewhere, and we usually do acknowledge them because they do have a great role in reading it and saying, this would make it better. Consider this is a problem here. This chapter is really slow. Maybe you want to cut it. They do a wonderful job of that. So you are number 8. I'm going to do a quick random number generator thing here. Yes, this had better actually work. So the winner is number 7. The box of goodies. There you go. Thank you. It is my time, right? I've made it time for, if anybody didn't get to ask and has a quick question left, I could take that, yeah?
Was there any time when you got distracted from your aim?
Was there any time when?
You got distracted
When I got distracted from my stories?
from your aim to be a writer?
No, from my aim to be yes. There were times when I did stop writing, and that was usually not being distracted so much as deciding that nobody was ever going to buy my books. I would send out a book, it would get rejected, and at some point you have to say, maybe it's me. Maybe I just can never get good enough to be published. So there were many times when I stopped writing for like 6 months, saying I'm never going to get published. So if somebody now asks me if you could change one thing, it would be to know that I would eventually get published. But then on the other hand, if I had known, would I have worked so hard at it? If I'd known that I was guaranteed to get published sometime, would I have kept on working? Probably not. So yeah, it's maybe a good thing.